Good evening. I guess it's no surprise that for most people, COVID-19 and impact of COVID-19 is top of mind. There is a growing expectation that things will not be the same post-COVID. But what does that mean? Well, in essence, for some of us, it means that for those to whom we have entrusted political power, our expectation is that they will bring, a, bring into being policies that will radically reduce the levels of inequality that we have in our country and that we have been so starkly confronted with during this COVID-19 pandemic. I live in a community township called Pakkelsdorp in a suburb of George, which is in South Africa. In a conversation with one of the community leaders, he said to me there's about 30,000 people living here, of whom they estimate about 15,000 being vulnerable. Now that number was a shock to me. That's around about 50% to 60% of the people. What stood out was that the majority of people are people who have no fixed or sustainable economic opportunity. They are referred to as scroungers, people that get up every day in the morning just going to seek for an opportunity. So they move around, try and find some opportunity, cleaning a garden, domestic work, jumping at the back of the bakkie for some work, and they can earn as little as 50 Rand a day, and with that they've got to sustain their families. A little bit higher up on the vulnerable spectrum are those who receive government grants. Now, my original thought was that those receiving government grants um, in February and March, life would continue the same for them in April. But he pointed out to me that many of these people that have grants and these people who are referred to as scroungers live on the same property. So with COVID cutting off the opportunity to scrounge, that grant income have to provide for up to 6 or 8 people. So that increased the vulnerability of people on grants. So what are some of the things that I am expecting from those in George to whom we have entrusted political power? Well, let's talk about public transport. Public transport to get out of Pakkelsdorp to town and back cost about 26 Rand. Now, this is totally prohibitive for these scroungers. Imagine having to spend half of your daily wage on transport. So we need a public transport that is radically transformed, that will facilitate the movement of the vulnerable so that they can move out of already constrained, economically constrained communities to access these scrounging income opportunities in other communities. And maybe in this way it becomes more sustainable. We have to seriously look at our regulations and bureaucracy. Presently we have a system that is prohibitive. Our bureaucracy and our regulation is more about preventing than promoting income opportunities. If we just look, for example, at land use, for most, in order to, we have single land use. So the moment you try and tag on an economic opportunity onto your land, the cost of doing that becomes an obstacle. It becomes a barrier. Trading spaces. There are so many rules about how people can trade, where they can sell, where they can't sell, and the policing thereof. So we need to revisit this. We need to do something more drastic and radical. We definitely expect that to those we entrusted with political power to make the necessary changes to bring our communities into greater equilibrium.